You're listening to In the Green Chair, a podcast series by Relay Education, a Canadian charity that delivers hands-on quality programming about environmental topics, renewable energy, climate change, and green careers. If you're looking to start, grow, or transform your green career, this show's for you. I'm your host, Madison Kendall. Wherever you fall on the spectrum of caring about fashion, chances are you're wearing clothes. If you think about what you're wearing, just for a second, how much was it? What's it made from? Who made it? And where will it go when you're done with it? So, what does fashion really cost? Our guest today, Sophia Yang, lays it out for us.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophia Yang. My Chinese name is Yang Cheng. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently coming to you from the unceded traditional and ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, colonially known as Vancouver, British Columbia, here on Turtle Island. So right now I wear a few different hats. The first one is I'm the founder and executive director of Starting Change. We're an ethical fashion, youth-led, not-for-profit organization that's turning to a social enterprise model as well. And we work at intersections of climate, racial, gender, and labor justice in the fashion industry. I also work as a corporate campaigner with Canopy Planet. Canopy Planet is an award-winning environmental advocacy organization that uses power of the market to save endangered old-growth forests through helping big organizations and brands sign forest conservation policies. And I also DJ in my spare time, and I'm also the founder of a new age music, arts, and fashion collective called Colored Space, where we host kaleidoscopic and multidimensional techno, music, art, and fashion events here in Vancouver, British Columbia. And when I have some spare time, is not very often. I also do a bit of consulting work, particularly equity, justice, and decolonization consulting as it relates to my Chinese Canadian heritage. That's a bit about me and the many different hats that I wear.
That's quite a full plate.
Yes.
Thank you for sitting down with us today. I know that you've been interviewed many, many times and have Threading Change videos up on YouTube and a very extensive and elaborate website that has a ton of information. But what I want to do here is paint a picture for our listeners. Do you paint a picture for listeners? Describe to listeners sort of your journey to where you are now from where the whole thing kind of started.
Mm-hmm.
So you come from a family of oil and gas engineers, and you emigrated from northern China to Calgary when you were 8.
Yes.
As an 8-year-old, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So my parents are the very traditional type of Asian parents where, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be an engineer to be successful. That's what they thought in their mind. A fun fact, my Chinese name Yang Cheng, Yang is my family name. Ya is half of Wen Ya, which means sophisticated, and Cheng is half of Gong Cheng, which means engineer. So my Chinese name literally means sophisticated engineer. Instead they got a loudmouth environmental activist, which is like polar opposite, protesting the pipeline instead of working on it. So sorry, mom and dad. But yeah, so when I was a young age, 8 years old, I did not think that I was going to be working in the environmental space, let alone working in the fashion environmental space. It's interesting how that journey has occurred.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I experienced climate anxiety when I was 12, when I read an article interviewing David Zuki on what young people can do to raise awareness about global warming, it was called at the time. But I would say ever since I was 12, in a way, I've been a climate activist. So when I was applying for university, my biggest interest was definitely something to do with climate and the environment as well.
You decided to go into the Faculty of Forestry at UBC and study natural resource conservation. So can you tell me a little bit about how you went from forestry to fashion?
I think, for a lot of people that maybe don't really know too much about fashion, I think fashion and sustainability and also fashion forestry may seem very separate. But the more you research about a topic, the more you learn and the more you find out. And The fact that we haven't been talking about fashion from a sustainability lens until recent years is pretty mind-boggling to me because there's actually so many interconnections. But the big watershed moment came for me in 2019. I'm gonna explain this by backing up a little bit because in 2018, I went to the first United Nations climate conference, and you have a lot of different interest areas, and you try to go to everything. It's near impossible because there's so many topics. So when I went again, I was like, okay, I learned from last year. I want to zone in on a topic I'm passionate about. And I remember doing a very quick control F search of fashion and circular economy events, and one popped up out of like thousands, even though it was contributing up to 10% of carbon dioxide emissions globally. And even that number is skewed because a lot of companies don't properly disclose their emissions. There's a big data gap in fashion, which is another huge topic. So I went to this event and there was no garment workers or garment heavy producing nations represented. So that's not really representing the global fashion industry because all the clothing is produced in the global south, right? Particularly like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, India, and also China. So that's the first thing I noticed. The second thing was that they were really there to be focused on the environmental aspect of the discussion, and that was it. And while I acknowledge that people have different areas of expertise, it's very dangerous to not talk about fashion from an intersectional lens because it is such an intersectional issue that combines human rights, labor rights, gender rights, climate justice, and also racial justice as well. So I felt like the discussions were very siloed to just the climate sense. And even then, they were really siloed to the emissions reduction sense. But you can't just be talking about emissions reduction because that's really just talking about mitigation. How do we adapt to the fashion industry's harm? How do we try and have better circular, more sustainable business models so that we're not just thinking about the end in design, but thinking about how to make things truly circular while not leaving anybody behind? And the third thing is I did not see any young people represented. So how can we innovate if the current and next generation of fashion circular economy leaders are not adequately represented? So I set to change that by founding Threading Change.
Okay, so that is a lot to happen all at once.
Yeah.
Did it ever occur to you that you couldn't make the change or that change wasn't possible?
Mm. Wow, that's a really good question. Um, I don't think anyone's ever asked me that, so that's a really good question. I think I definitely felt extremely intimidated, and I also felt very alone because I really did not feel like that many people were talking about fashion at all at the climate conference because that was the only event that was on fashion. But I think there were definitely times where I felt very small and I felt like, how can I possibly change all this? And by bringing in a great team, that's really how we've been able to deal with that fear.
If we can get into threading change a little bit, why is a youth-led organization valuable?
Young people more than ever are feeling climate and eco anxiety, and we're at a point where it's not even just about climate change, it needs to be about climate justice, it needs to be about climate reparations, it needs to be about not using global south as a dumping ground for the global north's very greedy and capitalistic consumption and production patterns. It's not a topic that's only relegated to adults. We need to be involving young people in these discussions because we're facing the impacts of climate catastrophe now. And I think by a youth organization, we have we have the knowledge base from conducting research, attending events, also being so passionate, but we also have the drive to really do something about the issue before we have huge responsibilities like having children or having a family, which by the way, a lot of us don't want to do that because of climate anxiety. So it makes a lot of sense that young people want to be thinking about these issues now because it really concerns our future and also our present moment.
Mhm.
Youth-led organizations right now leading a charge in a lot of those different methods because we've grown up in a generation that had climate anxiety since a very, very young age. And we also grow up in a world where, there's climate strikes and, there's more recognition about the need to do something, but then you don't actually see that any policy changes, any monumental changes happen. I really realized there's only so much you can do in terms of ranting about it and being angry about it. You need to do something. If you have a problem with something, do something about it.
Hmm.
And, like, if something is not happening, you go make it happen. So I think, these youth-led organizations are really catalyzing and bringing together all these amazing different young people in different communities and finding ways to strategize, to plan, to scheme, to organize,
To innovate.
innovate, yeah, to build a future that we want to see in sustainability in fashion and a lot of other industries. Because we can't wait for the adults because they're not doing much. So I think that's really why I'm so passionate about youth-led orgs, and I think there's less bureaucracy. You just get it done. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going on to trends. So there is a big issue with fast fashion. What's the key message for why people should care about the impacts of fast fashion?
So why is it that so many people shop fast fashion? Humans, I this quote from Ursula de Castro, the founder of Fashion Revolution, an amazing fashion organization. She said one a really, really good quote that I saw in the movie documentary True Cost. And she said, humans are not born to want to buy 12 pairs of jeans a year. We're not to born to be fast fashion consumers. These are examples of how society have embedded this gross culture of overconsumption and also a capitalistic consumption and indulgence into our culture. And I think a lot of the reason why fast fashion is so popular is because it's affordable and it's convenient. But what is dangerous about that is you're starting to see your clothing as merely commodities and not as stories. Everyone's favorite piece of clothing has a story. I wore this pair of shoes when I immigrated from China to Canada. My grandma gave this to me before she passed away. Or I wore this pair of shorts at my soccer game and I won. These are all memories and stories associated with clothing. It's not because of the price. It's not because it was from social media. But we are conditioned to believe that in order for clothing to be great and to be awesome, it has to be quick, it has to be affordable, it has to be in the Amazon package at our doorstep right now. And that's so dangerous as a society that we've started to really view clothing like takeout. In some cases, pieces of clothing are only worn a couple times before they're thrown away, before they're donated. In fact, research has shown that in the last 20 years, people are buying clothing up to 6 times more and wearing them 36% less than they did in the 2000s. And what's crazier is that 40% of clothing that's being sold in some countries don't even get used or worn. Whether it's this collection was outdated, there was a mistake, it goes to a landfill, it wasn't sold, so it goes to a landfill, or it gets burnt, right? In some companies that don't want other companies to steal their designs, as you may have heard Nike doing that previously. And I think this is why we must care about the impacts of fast fashion, is because it's made to be so incredibly quick and fast and easy to buy that we stop to view really the notion of what is happening. What is a true cost of that t-shirt? $5. It's $5 as the price tag, but what about the person that got the cotton to create it, the seamstress who made it come together, the person that was doing the branding, the person that was doing the retail person who helped you at checkout, or if you bought it online, the person who put package this package should be sent away, the person who did the design, the branding, all of it. $5 is not even going to cover 10% of that. So when you look at the true cost of clothing, a very dark reality sets in, which is these companies are able to cut corners and cut costs to a point where the real people, the garment workers that should be making this money, are not making any money at all. So in many ways, not only is it a humanitarian crisis, it's also a waste crisis, and it's also a gender equity crisis. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people think of fashion as a girly industry. Okay, if that was the case, then how come out of the top 10 richest fashion companies in the world, only one of them has a woman as a CEO? And why is that most of the people in leadership and board positions in fashion are still continually to be white Caucasian men? If it really was a girly industry, why are women not in positions of power? Why are women not in board positions? And why is it that most of the women that experience sexual and physical violence in the fashion garment making sectors are still women? It really is an industry built on giants, as it has a lot of darkness to it. And I think when you consider the humanitarian impacts, the social justice impacts, the gender justice impacts, the waste problem that fashion has, it's almost difficult to want to partake in fast fashion. And it's also very dangerous because now with social media like TikTok, there's now micro trends. Trends before that will come back in a couple of years have now been shortened to months or even weeks. So in a way, you don't even need to participate in trends because if that thing was out of style, now instead of it coming back to style 5 years from now, it'll probably come back to style like 1 year from now or even less. We need to be thinking about degrowth and also decoupling and deproduction as a society. We have more than enough clothes to go around right now. How can we reuse? How can we repurpose? How can we catalyze investment for textile waste solutions? And looking at how we can use next generation solutions to make clothing from agricultural residues or textile waste.
Mhm.
So once you understand even just those basics about fast fashion, it really does not, I don't know about everybody else, but really does not make me want to consume. And I used to be a fast fashion addict, right, when I was young. I love to go to the mall with my friends.
It's so unfortunate that we were fed this idea that we had to have all of these new things and it had to keep changing. You always had to just constantly be consuming things in order to be part of this conversation. And I love that you're changing the whole you're reframing the entire thing. And I think that's just so incredible. My final question for you is what do you have to say to the people who hear you talk about fast fashion, who come up with the rebuttal, okay, but sustainable clothing brands, ethical clothing brands are expensive?
Mm, yeah, I hear that a lot. And what I yeah, and what I say to that is by promoting sustainable fashion, no one is telling you you have to buy sustainable fashion. There is so much clothing already available in the world, that you can utilize, whether it's thrifting, vintage shopping, doing a clothing swap, going to, a holiday market, or supporting, even gifting, gift exchanges with friends. And I really do think I totally understand that for some people, buying a totally new piece of fashion to be as sustainable fashion can be sometimes be expensive. I acknowledge that. I know some of the brands that we work with is a higher price point. And I think that is a great opportunity for us to think about why we don't have to always buy something new. There's so many other ways that you can work around it. But more importantly, the we always say this about people in our lives: quality over quantity. So we think about that for people. Why don't we think about that for clothing? Something that goes on our bodies, right? I find it interesting how some people are very, looking at the different ingredients in skincare, or I can't eat that, I'm gluten free, I'm vegan, very conscious about what they put in their body, what they put on their face and their body. Is clothing not something you wear on your body? Are not chemicals that are on clothing after you wash it also something that touches your body? So if you want really good quality food, really good quality people, really good quality skincare, why would you not want good quality clothing? So if you had a decision to buy new, why would you buy not good quality clothing? You should only buy great quality clothing because that's what you deserve. And if it's expensive, think about the true cost of that item and what does it mean to actually spend, money on something that's going to last you longer, that's going to be stylish for generations to come. So my example is I have this black sweater. I remember I bought it at university. It was $87. I was thinking, this is so expensive. Oh my God. I wear it all the time.
You still have it, yeah.
I have it right there. That sweater took me like all these years. I still wear it. And everything I bought from Zara, everything I bought from Forever 21, everything I bought from H&M, nowhere. In the back of my closet at my parents' house. Not worn because it's out of style and it's cheap.
I bought a top from Topshop, and there were holes in it within, like, 3 months. I was like, "What is this? What is this?" Yeah, yeah, I'm totally with you on that whole idea of, getting things that mean something, having them be part of your story, and being able to weave them into the fabric of your being without causing all of the other destruction that comes with fast fashion or that comes with, mindless, um, participation in this, like, super capitalistic consumerist society. But that is a conversation different time, perhaps. Uh, Sophia, if there's, something that you wanna leave us with on maybe a hopeful note. I think that's been pretty hopeful, but if you could leave us with a hopeful note or something that you wanna plug for you specifically or for any of the organizations that you're a part of, now is your time. This is your stage.
So I'm gonna say three things because I just love saying things in three. So the first one is uh, Canopy, which is an organization that I work with full time, we are bringing next generation solutions to market. So what this means is we're currently looking at ways that we can use agricultural residues, textile waste, or even growing different types of fungi on yeast in order to make next generation materials and fabrics. And RenewCell is the first commercial industrial mill of its size opened up in Sweden in November 2022 that is creating these different types of textile waste textiles and bring them to market. So there's solutions available on the market. If you want to learn more, it's not all doom and gloom. If you want to learn more, you can go to just look up Canopy Planet Next Generation, and you'll see a lot of different materials and ways that you can support. The second thing I would say is Fashion Revolution Week is happening this year from April 24th to 29th. And this is a really big deal this year because it's a 10-year anniversary of the Raza Plaza factory collapse. This is the factory collapse in 2013 that killed over 1,000 people in Dhaka, Bangladesh. And Fashion Revolution was founded 10 years ago to really commemorate this very tragic fashion disaster. So this year, there's a lot of different events happening all around the globe for Fashion Revolution Week. Threading Change is participating in it by hosting a really large ethical fashion career hiring fair and also clothing swap with some really big brands in the Vancouver and BC area. So if you're interested, you can go to threadingchange.org/newsletter to sign up and stay updated, or you can visit our website, threadingchange.org, or Instagram, Facebook is all Threading Change, pretty easy to find, to stay up to date. And the third thing I would say is one of my new event collectives, Colored Space. We're looking at actively hosting regular artists and other types of creative events in the space, whether that's fashion, art, music, activism, even. So if you're interested in finding a space to, do really cool things, intersectional things, bring people together, or come out to one of our events, you can go to instagram.com/colored space, and you'll see all the different events and DJs and music and art and fashion things we're doing to really just, make Vancouver a more artistic and lively place. And yeah, those are my three things.
Brilliant, brilliant. Sophia, thank you so much for being here. It has truly been eye-opening and incredible, and you're so cool.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for being in the green chair and on the green chair.
Thank you for having me. This was great. Thank you so much.
Until next time, this has been In the Green Chair.